Hello and welcome back to the channel. Recently I shared a video on my channel in the community section that my son did concerning how they are allowing natural born males who are actually transgenders to compete in women's sports. Okay, because they choose to identify as women, you can't discriminate against them. They can compete in women's sports. Okay, but what I'm going to be talking about here is a natural born female. She's out of Africa and she has natural elevations of testosterone, but she is biologically a female. And guess what? She had to actually prove that. They had to do examinations on her to prove that she is actually a female, but she just got some extra stuff going on. She's very strong and she's built very strong, right? But she is a female. I want you to take a listen and listen how they are giving her a difficult time competing in women's sports, saying that she has an unfair advantage because she has these elevated levels of testosterone. Excuse me. They're saying that she has an unfair advantage. And so I need somebody to help me make this make sense, because this natural born female is being made to make alterations to her body to lower her levels because they said she has an unfair advantage. But yet in some circles you have natural born males who are born with that as well, who you can't tell them, nope, you can't compete because your testosterone levels are too high. They can compete in certain circles, but she can't. So let me just get this straight in my mind again. A natural born female is having problems competing in women's sports because they say she have an unfair advantage, but a natural born male who identifies as a transgender, he can compete in women's sports. I want you all to take a listen. Tell me if I'm getting this right. Am I hearing this right, or did I get something mixed up? Am I confused in something? Listen to this, and I will be right back.
Female track athletes with naturally elevated levels of testosterone must decrease the hormone to participate in certain races at major competitions like the Olympics, the highest court in international sports said Wednesday in a landmark ruling amid the pitched debate over who can compete in women's events. The decision was a defeat for Caster Semenya, a two-time Olympic champion at 800 meters from South Africa, who had challenged proposed limits placed on female athletes with naturally elevated levels of the muscle-building hormone testosterone. At a time when the broader culture is moving toward an acceptance of gender fluidity, the ruling affirmed the sports world's need for distinct gender lines, saying they were essential for the outcome of women's events to be fair. The gender studies folks have spent the last 20 years deconstructing sex, and all of a sudden they're facing an institution with an entirely opposite story, said Dorian Lamlett-Coleman, a law professor at Duke and an elite 800-meter runner in the 1980s who served as an expert witness for the track and field's world governing body. We have to ask, is respecting gender identity more important, or is seeing female bodies on the podium more important? Semenya's biology has been under scrutiny for a decade, ever since she burst on the scene at the 2009 World Track and Field Championships, and was subjected to sex tests following her victory. In South Africa, leaders complained of racism. The issue of whether a rare biological trait was causing an unfair advantage for Semenya, and a small subset of women quickly morphed into a battle about privacy and human rights, and Semenya became its symbol. She has said little publicly about her specific biology other than stating that God made her the way she is. In issuing its ruling, the Swiss-based Court of Arbitration for Sport addressed the complicated, highly charged question involving fair play, gender identity, biology and human rights that track and field has been grappling with for decades, since competition is divided into male and female categories, what is the most equitable way to decide who can compete in women's events? In a 2-to-1 decision, the court ruled that restrictions on permitted levels of naturally occurring testosterone were discriminatory, but that such discrimination was a necessary, reasonable, and proportionate means of achieving track and field's goal of preserving the integrity of female competition. It was a victory, though not a complete one, for track and field's world governing body, the International Association of Athletics Federations. The federation said it was grateful for Wednesday's ruling. The IAAF had argued that athletes classified with differences of sexual development, also known as intersex athletes, particularly women who possess testes and natural testosterone levels in the male range, gain an unfair advantage in women's events ranging from 400 meters to 1 mile, because they have additional muscle mass, strength and oxygen carrying capacity. But the sports court expressed some serious concerns on Wednesday about the fairness and practical application of testosterone limits. These concerns include the potential inability of athletes to remain within permitted limits even with hormonal treatment and the practical impossibility of compliance some athletes may face because of the treatment's side effects. The court also expressed concern about a lack of concrete evidence that athletes with differences of sexual development gain a significant advantage at longer race distances, 1,500 meters and the mile. The panel asked that the IAAF consider deferring application of its testosterone rule beyond 800 meters until more evidence is available. Semenya, 28, issued a statement through her lawyers, saying, "I know that the IAAF's regulations have always targeted me specifically. For a decade the IAAF has tried to slow me down, but this has actually made me stronger. The decision of the CAS will not hold me back. I will once again rise above and continue to inspire young women and athletes in South Africa and around the world." Her lawyers said they might appeal Wednesday's decision, arguing that her unique genetic gift should be celebrated, not regulated. Semenya can appeal to the Swiss Supreme Court on narrow grounds. The IAAF accepts athletes with differences of sexual development as legally female. For competitive purposes, though, it effectively considers them biologically male. The IAAF has said this is necessary to provide a level playing field in races that can be won by 1/100th of a second. To do nothing, it has said, risks losing the next generation of female athletes. If Semenya wants to keep participating in her specialty, the 800 meters, at major international competitions, she faces some hard choices: take hormone-suppressing drugs and reduce her testosterone levels below 5 nanomoles per liter for 6 months before competing and maintain those lowered levels, compete against men, or enter competitions for intersex athletes, if any are offered. Otherwise, she would not be allowed to run the 800 at prestigious competitions like the Olympics. Most women, including elite female athletes, have natural testosterone levels of 0.12 to 1.79 nanomoles per liter, the IAAF said, while the normal male range after puberty is much higher, at 7.7 to 29.4 nanomoles per liter. No female athlete would have natural testosterone levels of 5 nanomoles per liter or higher without differences in sex development or tumors, the IAAF has said. Paula Radcliffe of England, the world record holder in the women's marathon, said Wednesday that she respected the court's decision for ruling that women's sport needs rules to protect it. But Semenya and her supporters challenged the notion that biological sex is so neat and binary. Semenya has called the IAAF rule, which was introduced a year ago, medically unnecessary, as well as discriminatory, irrational, unjustifiable, and a violation of the rules of sport and universally recognized human rights. Madeline Pape, a former Olympian from Australia, who has raced against Semenya, said she had changed her thinking that Semenya should be prohibited from competing in certain women's events. "I think it's hard to draw a biological line around the female athlete category," said Pape, now a PhD candidate in sociology at the University of Wisconsin. "I want to make sure people understand the complexities and relate to these women as real people. Athletes should be allowed to compete based on their preferred gender, and we see what that looks like," Pape said, adding, "I'm not saying it's a solution, but I think it's a start." Francine Niyonsaba of Burundi, who finished second to Semenya in the 800 meters at the 2016 Olympics in Rio de Janeiro, publicly confirmed last month that she also had naturally elevated levels of testosterone. She called the IAAF's proposed rule to restrict hormone levels discriminatory. "It doesn't make sense," Nyan Saba said in an interview with the Olympic Channel. "I didn't choose to be born like this. What am I? I'm created by God." The World Medical Association on Wednesday called on doctors around the world not to implement the IAAF's rule. Its president, Dr. Leonid Eidelman of Israel, said in a statement, "We have strong reservations about the ethical validity of these regulations. They are based on weak evidence from a single study, which is currently being widely debated by the scientific community." A group of scientists has charged that the IAAF relied on faulty data in trying to establish the precise advantages of athletes with elevated testosterone levels. Semenya's lawyers and other supporters have argued that science has not conclusively shown that elevated testosterone provides women with more of a significant competitive edge than factors like nutrition, access to coaching and training facilities, and other genetic and biological variations. The ruling by the arbitration court was also watched closely by transgender athletes and by officials of the International Olympic Committee as they prepared to set guidelines for participants in the 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo. Transgender athletes are no longer required to have reassignment surgery to participate in the Olympics, and those transitioning from female to male can compete without restriction. Athletes transitioning from male to female must declare that their gender identity is female and, for sporting purposes, cannot rescind the declaration for 4 years. The athletes must also suppress their testosterone level below 10 nanomoles per liter for a year before becoming eligible for the Olympics. Wednesday's ruling in the Semenya case, though, could prompt the IOC to recommend that Olympic sports adopt the more restrictive cutoff of 5 nanomoles per liter. Pape, the former Australian Olympian, said she believed that Wednesday's court ruling, and the IAAF's rule limiting testosterone levels, ultimately comes down to people's fears and misconceptions about trans women competing. But Coleman, the law professor, said that in sports distinguishing people on the basis of their biology actually matters a lot. "It matters because if we fail to do it, we will lose the capacity to isolate the best females on the planet," she added. "We would never see a female body on the podium."
Okay, now you've heard all of that. I said quite a bit before I let you listen to all of this. Now it sounds to me like they are giving this young woman a lot of trouble, many problems. She even had to prove, they made her prove that she was a natural born female. She has gone through biological scrutiny for over a decade. She's been under their scrutiny, subjected to sex test after she's won to say, wait, something's got to be up here. Why are you winning? She had to go through all of this. But yet, a transgender can be naturally born a male and says, well, you know what, I identify as a female and I want to compete in women's sports. And you have to open the door for her. No examinations, no anything. But with her, you got to lower your testosterone. Am I hearing that correctly, or are they making the males lower theirs as well? Even with that, they said that there is no proof that gives you an unfair advantage. Although, in the case of a male, it's always been known and stated that they are physically stronger than women. But yet, without question, are they saying that without question, a transgender male who says he's a female, he can compete in women's sports, but this natural born woman cannot? Did I hear that right? I had to listen to it a couple of times. I'm just not sure. What are they saying here? Because this woman had to jump through some hoops. And I'm not hearing that other people have to do that. I'm not hearing that transgenders have to jump through those same hoops. Tell me what you think in the comment section. Am I hearing this correctly? Tell me what your thoughts are. It's kind of screwy to me if that is the case. If they are making her jump through hoops, but transgenders do not have to, this is certainly not fair. I'm sorry. It is just not fair. that a biological female would have to go through hoops that a biological male wouldn't have to go through to compete in female sports. Tell me your thoughts in the comments section. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, share and like this video. And with that, I'm out. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.